Lourdes, in your book, you argue that we're at a historic turning point in the evolution of money. What convinced you that this isn't just another fintech trend, but something fundamentally different?
So we started working on this 5 years ago because a lot of the activities happening in emerging markets. And then for the last year, we worked with the late Dr. Mark Mobius, a legendary investor in emerging markets, John Ninia, who was working with him, and Sharbari Pandit, who was at McKinsey. And we started in full discussing what was happening. Dr. Mark Mobius and John Ninia were traveling the world. So while we were having our weekly discussions, they were reporting from Jamaica, Bermudas, India, China, or Brazil, where mobile payments have become so prevalent. So as I said, there are a number of things. One is C2C, customer to customer. We are having a dinner with friends. Each one has to pay his own part. So how to pay that? So we do with Venmo. Or again, more and more, what is happening, I have to transfer. Again, my daughter is at the university. She needs urgently $200. How do I send it? In this country, I have Venmo, but guess what? She doesn't like Venmo. She's using Zelle, so I have to go to my bank and use Zelle. While, again, so the success of WeChat Pay, Alipay in China, again, a private initiative. These are in a country that is very much having a very important government role in the whole economy. This was led by private companies, WeChat Pay and Alipay, with all the consequences. You have, again, other e-commerce companies, Jumia in Africa or Mercado Libre in Latin America, who launched their own payments. And as they launch the payments, again, you are in uncharted territory. What happens? So if we look now, right now in Brazil, part of the consumer finance is taken over by Pix. Why? Because you buy a pair of shoes that, by the way, the shoes in Brazil are very expensive. So you have a party, you want to buy these beautiful and expensive shoes. So you decide to pay the shoes. That's very common in Brazil in 3-4 times. If you handle this payment through the shop, the interest rates will be very high. However, the digital currencies, stablecoins, Bitcoins, all the lower the cost of this transaction. So then Pix can do what is called Pix parcerado in 3 times, in 4 times, at a much cheaper price. So what happens? Yes, the banks were reluctant because they were losing commissions. They were losing this consumer finance segment that is very profitable for banks. But then at the same time, in Brazil, or even in this country, there are still citizens that receive their salary in a check. You go and cash the check, and you continue paying by cash whatever your daily needs. If you have a Pix in this country, what will happen is that this person will be paid by Pix. It may be paid by Pix, and then will pay with this Pix. So you increase the pie, the size of the pie. People, again, in emerging markets that are in the informal economy that can range from 30% to 50, 60, 80% that are outside, that no one does business with them, can be part of the system, can be something that is so expensive for banks. Know your customer, very expensive. You have to spend so much money in having the right profile about the customer and knowing how much you can give in the mortgage, or again, in a small loan, or for an SME. You don't give loans to small and medium-sized companies. So then who is going to capture this business when the informal economy in this country or in other countries, who is going to capture the small loans, mortgages, and payments? So who is going to capture? So it's going to be captured by the mobile payment that is being used, or is going to capture by, again, the banks that become part of the system, and they realize that even if in the first phase the commissions that are able to charge go much down, then the service is much cheaper for them and better to be part of the system. That's what we have seen in many countries all over the world. And again, if I go to the example, I have some money in Venmo. I keep money in Venmo. Of course, that money gives me zero interest. So what about if Venmo incentivizes the fact that, to give an example of a private company, a private fintech, what about if Venmo decides to incentivize those of us who keep money in the system with some interest? So yes, we are in uncharted territory. There are many opportunities for different businesses. And then, of course, those who will not adjust, as we discussed before, stand to lose, for sure. But then, as we discussed in the previous segment, banks still and will still be at the heart of the business and at the heart of the big transactions between companies. And for me, we don't know 10 years from now, but in the next years, banks will be central to the financial system of the world.
Lourdes, one of your more provocative ideas is that corporate treasury could change dramatically. If you're a CFO 5 years from now, how different might managing cash look like compared to today?
Yeah. So again, one thing is that your services, so the cost of anything, transactions, treasury, will be less because, again, the technology of blockchain allows the ledgers, allows instant transactions, immediate, and your treasury is much more fluid and much faster. You don't need to call 10 times your provider again, we gave the example in Mexico, and say, have you received my payment? Or your Mexican provider, or in Guatemala, or in India, you don't need to call him or her 1,000 times to say, did you receive my payment? That will be instant, and you will see it immediately. So then, number one, much faster. So I would say you will have less work, but of course, your opportunities will be tremendous, and we are moving into digitalizing your treasury. That will be much faster, where you can invest. Again, we discussed this before. As of now, I want to, as a business or as an individual, as a citizen, I want to, how do I buy Reliance shares, to give you an example? So how do I manage my treasury? I want to buy, I am operating in Indonesia, and I want to buy, I know the Indonesian market very well. So guess what? As a way to manage my treasury, I want to invest in the stock market of Indonesia. You have to do it through your subsidiary. You cannot do it through your central from US. Very, very difficult. So all these things will be global. We discussed that before. The world will become more global, more instant, more rapid, more transparent. So much better.
Lourdes, do you have another 15 minutes to spare? You've been so generous with your time.
Okay, maybe 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, yeah. Let's roll segment 2.
Yeah.